Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. As I always say it, patience is a virtue and still is. So wait, truth will come out, unfortunately later than the lie, but will come out. Remember Bakhmut? I do remember Bakhmut, where the Russians, eventually fought the Ukrainians where the Ukrainians wanted, and that was inside the city of Bakhmut. Ukrainians could have chosen to fight in front of Bakhmut, left of Bakhmut, right of Bakhmut, behind Bakhmut, but not in Bakhmut. Well, they choose to fight over there, defend Bakhmut inside Bakhmut. Bakhmut is a ruin, unfortunately, so it was a decision made by certain generals with big heads. So, Bakhmut is lost, so we know that one, that Russia pushed them outside, pushed the Ukrainians outside, conquered it, took over, occupied it, however you want to call that. The fact is, the Russians said they will do it, and they did it. The Ukrainians could not say, we lost, because first they say, well, Bakhmut is unimportant. Then they said, well, Bakhmut is important. And then they say, well, Bakhmut is our fortress. If the Russians are passing by Bakhmut, we're done. So it's important. We should fight the Russians in Bakhmut. Now they're lost. And they say again, actually Bakhmut is not important. So it depends how the wind blows. If I win, it was a great battle and very important. If I lose, never mind, it was nothing. That's normal. Everyone would do that in a war. Why? Because you don't want to say, well, this was a great battle that we lost. All right, and then your army is going to be all up. So anyway, what did the Ukrainians do? The Ukrainians, as soon as they lost, it took them some time to recognize they lost Bakhmut. The Westerners picked that up though and said, well, they lost Bakhmut. The Ukrainians, I think they need about 4 days or 5 days to say, after Prigozhin came with his Wagner guys and said, well, we took over Bakhmut, it's done, we liberated it. Whatever. Euphemisms. So then the Ukrainians said, no, we didn't lose, we're actually on the offensive on the flanks. That was to minimize the damage. It was damage control. We are advancing or pushing the Russians back. And they didn't talk about, and we still fight in Bakhmut. They didn't talk about losing Bakhmut. Why? They didn't recognize it. And now again, after a while, remember the thing in Bakhmut happened about, almost a month ago or so, or 2 weeks ago at least. Now we have the Ukrainians coming and telling us that actually, yeah, Bakhmut is kind of like done and even the flanks is nothing. And is nothing. I said that right then when they started saying, the minute they said Prigozhin came and said, Bakhmut is done, we took over, these guys immediately said, well, we're attacking the flanks and we're attacking, maybe 2 or day before that. We're attacking the flanks right now. So now we have this guy coming over, the general who is lurking inside the buildings, in the basements. Okay, but anyway, I don't want him to be outside fishing, but anyway. Russia changes tactics in Bakhmut, looks to go back on offensive. So they have to say, well, actually, we conducted an offensive and all that, but the Russians are going back, or they want to go back to the offensive. Well, I think you never succeeded in any offensive on the flanks, and the Russians did the same thing as they do it right now, but you just bring this as normality. Oh, wait a second, they go back to this. They've always been on this, I don't want to say successful path, but they were. The Russians have noticeably decreased their active hostilities in the Bakhmut area, while the amount shelling from heavy weapons has increased, the officer said. The situation in Bakhmut, I'm quoting, the situation in Bakhmut area has changed. I don't think it changed, it's just that you starting telling us the truth. Sirski, I just have a gut feeling, okay? I don't have the evidence to say that really, like, I'm flying over Bakhmut and I tell you exactly what happens. There is a significant decrease in active enemy actions, with an increase in the amount of shelling with heavy weapons, mainly artillery and mortars. Let me translate this. So, enemy actions, so they're not fighting in Bakhmut. There's a significant decrease in active enemy actions, but an increase in amount of shelling, so they continue shelling on the flanks. mainly artillery and mortar. They've been doing this, and they were fighting actively in Bakhmut. Now that's ceased because it's over, and they continue doing what they did before. Well, let's move on. At first glance, it seems that the enemy has given up further offensive actions in Bakhmut. Well, it's done. What do you have to do over there in Bakhmut? However, this is not the case, the general said. The lull is caused by a change in personnel, including the withdrawal of Wagner units and their replacement by the regular army and air assault units. The enemy seeks to seize the initiative to prevent Ukrainian counteroffensive actions and go to instead go on the offensive itself. Although Russia controls most of Bakhmut, it won't let that go. The battle for the town continues, Ukrainian Deputy Minister Hanna Maliar said on May 31st. The Russians are trying to take a proactive positions and make Ukrainian forces go on the defensive, she said. That's been anyway, what I think happens here is this. They are reverting to what happened after they lost Bakhmut. And they say, well, that's some over there, well, they're not really doing anything in Bakhmut, but they bring new troops in, and they started bombarding. I think that's been the case since Bakhmut fell. But they come to this new analysis, and this is a Ukrainian view of things, and this is my interpretation of their presentation of what happens over there. Believe me, or not believe me, there was a wrong choice. Always verify and get your information from as many sources as possible, and make sure you verify and you're skeptical about the information. But look at the map. Look at the map, and I guarantee you that in about, I'd say, a month and a half, you're going to see that the Russians advance from Bakhmut. And what are these guys going to say then? You're not going to see the Ukrainians advancing east, you're going to see the other guys advancing west. And then all this BS, what they say here about their offensive and pushing the Russians back on the flank, you're going to say, oh, they tried, but they failed. I don't think they were able to do anything, because if they were, they wouldn't have lost Bakhmut. Why do you lose here to go on the flanks to encircle them when, if you look over the Bakhmut, the flanks are overly advanced compared with the Bakhmut? They were fearing to be encircled anyway. But this is what happens in Bakhmut right now. The Ukrainians tell us what actually I think happens. The Russians continue to bombard. I think they regroup, and then they're going to advance. That's the next step. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.